Your faith was never meant to stay quiet. Around tables, in conversations, through questions and doubt, God is preparing everyday believers to speak with grace, courage, and truth. This summer, we learn together, grow together, and get ready to share the hope of Jesus, declare and defend.
Hey everyone, welcome to Lesson 6 of our 8-week Bible study, How to Declare and Defend the Faith. The first 4 lessons were all about how to declare and why we should declare our faith. And now we're in the latter part, the last 4, about defending our faith, because some people are not going to want to hear what we have to say, and they will attack our faith. And the best defense for your faith is to live your life for Jesus, to let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And that's what we looked at last week. And having the mindset that just expects it and rejoices in persecution is key to defending the faith. Because it's not about winning an argument. What is it about? Representing Jesus well. And one of the best ways you can do that is by sharing your personal testimony. And that's what we see in Acts chapter 22. Your personal testimony is your story of how Jesus Christ saved you and changed you by his grace. And you are testifying of his grace. That's your testimony. And Paul uses that in Acts chapter 22. In verse 1, it says this, he's speaking to the Jews, and the Jews hate him because he's preaching Jesus was the Messiah, and the Jews don't believe Jesus is the Messiah. At least the majority don't. And so he's speaking to the Jews, and here's what he says, is they have him ready to persecute him, beat him, imprison him, and if they could, kill him. Here's what he says, men, brethren, and fathers, hear ye my defense, which I make unto you now. What is the defense that Paul makes? It is his personal testimony of salvation. The Greek word defense is apologia. It's where we get our modern term for apologetics. And that's the discipline for defending the faith. And this testimony of Paul is what he chooses to use. And if he uses it in the Bible to defend the faith, then surely I can use my testimony as well to defend the faith. And there's 3 actions and there's 3 parts. So let's look at Paul and see the 3 actions and then discuss the 3 parts and how we can use it when we share our testimony. The first thing is this. The first action is Paul engaged the crowd. Verse 22, chapter 22, verse 2, when they heard that he spake in the Hebrew tongue to them, they kept the more silence. So he relates to them. He makes himself relatable to them by speaking to them in a way they understand. And then he says this in verse 3, I am verily a man which am a Jew, born in Tarsus, city of Cilicia, brought up in the city at the feet of Gamaliel, and taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers, and was zealous toward God, as ye all are this day. Paul says to them essentially, guys, I was just like you. I grew up here. I speak your language, and I was zealous for God the same way you are right now. And therefore I was persecuting the Christians. He engaged the crowd. And one of the best things you can do is not to be like a Christian looking down on everybody else with your Christianity, but to just say, hey, man, I used to think like that. I used to talk like that. I used to feel that way. I used to be lonely. I used to be depressed. I used to think my works got me to heaven. I used to be just like you. engage the crowd, and then Paul exalts the Christ. And that's what we see in verse 6. And it came to pass, as I made my journey, I was come nigh to Damascus about noon, and suddenly there shone from heaven a great light. And I fell on the ground and heard a voice saying, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And I answered, Who art thou, Lord? He said unto me, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom thou persecutest. Paul has an encounter with Christ. His salvation is very unique in that he is on his way to persecute Christians. A light shines from heaven and he hears a voice. It's the voice of Jesus. And he says, why are you persecuting me? And Paul, in that moment, surrenders to Christ. So he says, I used to be just like you until I had an encounter with Christ. And then Paul explains the change. If you look at verse 11, Paul goes to a city. And in verse 12, he meets one named Ananias. Verse 12 says, he was a devout man according to the law, having a good report of all the Jews which dwelt there. He came unto me and stood and said unto me, Brother Saul, receive thy sight. And then if you look down, verse 14, he says this over Paul's life. The God of our fathers has chosen thee that thou should know his will and see that just one, Jesus, and should hear the voice of his mouth, for thou shalt be his witness unto all men of what thou hast seen and heard. And then Paul has an encounter with Jesus later where Jesus says to him, you will be the witness to the Gentiles. So Paul says, guys, I used to be just like you, persecuting the church. I had an encounter with Jesus and he changed me. He changed me. So now instead of persecuting the church, I'm spreading the word of the gospel and I am a witness of what I have seen and heard. That's his defense. And it's so airtight, the only recourse the Jews have is not to argue against it, because there is no argument against a personal testimony. All they can do is attack Paul physically, and they try to have him arrested and scourged, and ultimately they want to kill him. But the point is not, I don't want to focus so much on the persecution, but really the point is that this argument is airtight. And there's the three actions: engage the crowd, I used to be just like you; exalt Christ, I met Jesus; and then explain the change, this is who I am. And those three actions kind of lay into the three parts of our testimony. The three parts is who you were before Jesus. And you need to say things probably that relate to most people. Empty, lonely, worried, scared. I didn't have purpose. I was self-reliant, self-sufficient. I thought I was a good person. I thought I was good enough to get to heaven based on my own willpower or my own works. Who I was, or who you were, is the first part. And then the second part is your encounter with Jesus when God saves you. And you say, well, I got saved at 4 years old. Well, you still were empty. You still were sinful. You still probably didn't know Jesus was the only way to heaven. Maybe you could tell somebody like, yeah, do you know how to get to heaven when you die? I used to not know either until I found out. Let me tell you about it. And then you talk about how God had an encounter with you through the Holy Spirit. If you're saved, you know that it's not just an intellectual shift, but a spiritual change through the Holy Spirit. And whether it was one day or whether it was years of God slowly drawing you to himself and to Jesus, you had an encounter with Christ. And then the third part is who you are now. The person God has changed you to be. And you can say, I used to be a husband that didn't care about his wife, or a dad that was frustrated with his kids, or I used to be worried about finances, and now I have peace. I have joy. I know I have a reason to live. I have a purpose. And I have the truth. And I have confidence. I'll tell you, friend, that is such an airtight defense. Nobody can out-logic it. Nobody can explain it away. All they have to do is either accept it or reject it. So use your testimony to defend the faith. And I almost always will couple John chapter 3 that we already learned, or the Romans Road, with my testimony. So here's your exercise. This is going to be important. Use your testimony with each other to share the gospel. Don't argue. Don't pretend to be that it's a debate, but just let each other practice. Hey, this is who I was. This is my encounter with Jesus. Maybe it was at church. Maybe it was in the car. Maybe it was listening to preaching. Maybe it was a slow drawing of the Lord. This is my encounter with Jesus. And this is who I am now because of Christ. And you can very effectively declare and defend your faith through your personal testimony. So do that. And then the other assignment is this. You need to pick up more church invites, at least 5 church invites, and carry them with you, and look for an opportunity to invite someone to church and share your testimony with them. So you could do it simply like this. Hey, do you go to church anywhere? Well, this is where I go to church. It is the greatest church in America. And you hand them that church invite and you say, can I just take like 2 minutes and tell you how my life has changed because of what this church teaches? And then you take 2 or 3 minutes and share your testimony. God will use you. Be bold, be courageous, declare your faith, defend your faith, not by winning an argument, but by representing Jesus well, and share your testimony. God bless.